Welcome, everybody, to Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, the author of Writing That Gets Noticed, Find Your Voice, Become a Better Storyteller, Get Published, which was named by Poets and Writers a best book for writers. Every week, I speak with novelists, with authors, with writers of every niche to talk about their tips, their tricks, their strategies, and how the sauce is made, including creative advice. I'll talk about essays and articles and share my own experience from 3 decades of publishing. So join me every week and grow your business and build your craft with Freelance Writing Direct. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. And follow along on Substack, where I share special clips for subscribers only at estelleserasmus.substack.com. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, and today I am so delighted to have Jennie Young on the program. And let me tell you a little bit about Jennie. She's a professor of rhetoric at UW Green Bay, specializing in applied rhetoric, humor, and feminism. Using equal parts theory and humor, she helps women detect manipulation and decode power dynamics in dating, work, and life. And her book that's out now is Burn the Haystack, Decode Dating, Torch the Duds, and Make Room for Men Who Matter. And we're going to get into it today on the program. Welcome, Jennie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure. And as somebody who was a magazine editor and also gave dating advice before the online dating really took proliferation, it's fascinating to me to see how you turn some of these tropes on their heads to support women, which is just always been so important to me as well. In fact, I interviewed you for an article that I had written for Next Avenue. And I start by saying that I found my needle.
Yeah.
And as you described the term, finding the needle in the haystack. And that's a big part of your premise of the book. So can we start, first of all, by you explaining the meaning of burn the haystack?
Sure. So, I mean, that's the cliche that everyone invokes when they're talking about finding love, right? They're trying to find the needle in the haystack. And when I was at the very early stages of kicking off this method as a public scholarship project, partly out of frustration, like personal frustration as a woman on the dating apps, and partly out of looking for some kind of a metaphorical framework, I was up late one night and I just Googled, how do you actually find a needle in a haystack in real life? And the answer to that is that you burn the haystack to the ground, because metal doesn't burn, and then the needles will just sort of emerge. And I realized that fit perfectly with the track I was already on for this method. So I feel like now, yeah, of course, that's how you do it. I should have figured that out, but I didn't. But as soon as I read that, I realized, no, that's it. Like, that is the governing metaphor.
Can you tell a little bit about your own dating history that kind of brought you to this point where you thought, okay, I'm going to do something and create this concept?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was probably very similar to the experience every other woman has had on a dating app, which is that you kind of go in knowing all the jokes and you're prepared for the fish pics and the bathroom mirror selfies and everything. And that's all there in spades. But it was even worse than what I anticipated, and emotionally more devastating. And I did what a lot of women do, which is give it a go for a while. And then I would just think, I can't do this. It's too terrible. It's too demoralizing. I'd quit all the apps and resign myself to just, I'm good on my own. And then, a few months later, I'd try it again and on a different app, and it'd be the same experience. And after going through a few cycles of that and really starting to, I guess, become wise to what was going on rhetorically in those apps, I kind of got to a point where I got really angry, and I just thought, we're not, like, as women, like, we can't keep doing this. Somebody's got to address it in a way it's not being addressed right now.
So, how did your dating philosophy change once you decided to burn the haystack? What
Mhm.
started happening for you?
I realized that it couldn't be a game of going into the dating apps to find someone. Not only does that not work, it's really inefficient. So once I like toggled to the opposite mode, which was that my whole goal just became to rule men out, to burn the haystack. I wasn't even thinking about, does this one look nice when I like, it was just like, nope, 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 nope. There's no shortage of men on dating apps. They actually outnumber women up to 3 to 1 on some apps. Like, so if you're talking sheer numbers, there's way more men than you need to look through. So it became a game of whittling that down.
So you actually found a needle for yourself,
I
but
did.
it wasn't ultimately your needle. But you say that it was still very valuable. I know you're with someone now, but
Yeah.
that was after the book was written. Can you talk more about finding better people for yourself, even if maybe they aren't the ultimate ones?
That first needle you're referring to, who, like, I would say, yeah, he's a needle, didn't turn out to be my needle. That was pre-burned haystack. I had started to like do a little rhetorical experimentation. I'd even written about it a little bit. I hadn't fully developed burned haystack. I wasn't even calling it burned haystack at that point. What we've found is that needle behavior is needle behavior, like, across the board. Every single burned haystack success story kind of sounds the same. So, like, at this point, I feel like we've identified the rhetorical moves that render a man a needle. Now, beyond that, I mean, there's just a myriad of factors that not only do I not have any control of, nobody has any control over. So, burned haystack is really about those very, very early interactions on the dating apps in real life, and then beyond that, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a relationship counselor, I'm a rhetorician, and I stay firmly in that line, but or lane. But I do feel like, we've learned a lot about the consistencies and rhetorical moves that can be identified in terms of finding men who are
Or
dateable in the sense of long-term monogamy, which is the focus of Burned Haystack. Not because I think that's better than any other relationship structure, but because I think it's the hardest thing to find on the dating apps and what the majority of women still want.
so what I love throughout the book, I mean, I love so much of the book, but I love that your sense of humor comes through.
Oh,
And you
thank
sort
you.
of have this tongue-in-cheek seriousness of asking a woman on a dating app how many invitations she's gotten to cuddle or snuggle or curl up on the
Mm-hmm.
couch and so on. And she'll roll her eyes straight up into the back of her head. There is a weird amount of hypothetical cuddling and snuggling going on in men's dating app profiles and in early messaging conversations. And I'm like, yes, that's so true. And then you said things like the seriousness of how you unpack something. When a man says that they're like an amusement park ride,
The amusement park guys, we call that rhetorical pattern Six Flags or red flags.
Six Flags or red flags. I
Yeah,
love that.
right.
And then you say, hey, amusement park rides are fun, but only for a few seconds to a few hours. You wouldn't want to live in an amusement park. That would be stomach churning in a literal sense and destabilizing in a literal and figurative sense,
Hmm.
and really just kind of insane and creepy. Think clowns and funhouse mirrors and things moving at high speed while upside down. I love that
Oh,
because
thank
you
you.
just break it all down. And I'm somebody who's very analytical, but
Hmm.
things used to stymie me. Like,
Hmm.
somebody would, and this was before really the online stuff. I was early JDate, early
Okay.
Match.com. So you really break it down. And the way that I came to you was I teach writing
Hmm.
and I'm a journalist, and somebody had sent me an email, a man, of
Hmm.
course,
Yeah.
asking for my help, but in such a the prize kind of way.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I said, this is really sitting weird with me. I don't know why. And people were
Yeah.
like, you give advice and he wants your advice. And I said, but it's the way that he's saying it. And somebody said, you know who you need to look into? She said, Jennie Young. And that's how I got to you. It wasn't through a dating thing because I've been married for
Right.
so long. I was fascinated. I just was fascinated. So, one of my favorite chapters is chapter 5, Red Flag Rhetorical Patterns.
Yeah.
And you even have a subhead, run if you
Yeah.
see these. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to give like one or two of them here. Test and apologize. Do you want to explain what that is?
Yeah, it's so common. It's you on the dating apps, it's usually sexual. It doesn't ha like I've seen test and apologize patterns in other aspects of life beyond dating, but on the dating apps, the man will usually text something sexual right away. So we're talking like the very first message before there's been any interaction. And then before the woman even has a chance to respond, he'll text again. So, you can see the timestamps on these, and it's like 1 minute later. And he'll say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That was completely inappropriate. I swear I'm not normally like this. I just got really excited by how beautiful you are," or whatever it is. That's all intentional. That he didn't lose his mind and make a mistake. He's trying to see how okay is this woman with being objectified, with having her boundaries violated, but also like building in this plausible deniability about being a good guy. I always tell women that the test is real, the apology is not. And that should be an
Yeah.
automatic, you should be done with that
It
guy. No more
it
words.
makes so much sense. I remember I used to have people who would want to like instantly, how was your day?
Yeah,
And just kind of go in the minutia without asking for a
right.
date. And
Yeah.
you covered that in here too.
That sounds like receptacles for randomness is another
Receptacles for, I
pattern.
love that.
Yeah.
Receptacles for, and I love alliteration too
Yeah.
as a writing teacher. And that's another rhetorical pattern
Hmm.
because, again, it's almost like breadcrumbing, but they're just
Yeah.
giving little tidbits of attention, right? They're trying
Right.
to drag you along. Is that what it is?
Receptacles for randomness refers to the men who you don't even know them at all and I've never had a conversation with them and they start texting like, "Oh, I'm going to Costco," or I'm fixing the garage door, like stuff you just wouldn't care about with people you don't know. And I don't know if that's male entitlement, like where they just assume everything they do is fascinating because they've always kind of had an inherent audience, or if it's just that maybe they were married for 30 years and don't really know how to interact with women unless it's about domestic chores. But that's not interesting to women who don't know them. So it's
Yeah.
almost like this, they just need a target to unload every little element of their day, or almost like a "hey mom, look at me," I just need so much
Yeah.
attention, I need it to be validated, every single thing I do. And most women are just really annoyed by that.
The advice you give is so practical, but it's based in the science of rhetoric. It's
Yeah.
based in an academic by nature, a
Hmm.
teacher.
Yeah.
And so you're now demystifying
Hmm.
these words, these phrases, the way somebody acts. And it's just so important. I mean, you even talk about notifications. Don't put your
Hmm.
notifications on. They shouldn't feel that you're available. And you're all about protecting the women. You even
Yeah.
say, if you don't feel comfortable on a date, you can leave, go out the
Yep.
bathroom door. And I
Hmm.
agree. I went on a date once and the guy seemed very dodgy. And I was like, you know what? I have to go. I have the call I have to be on.
Yeah.
Not even a
Yeah.
call. I think I said I had a meeting and he was just like, okay.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I think
But
we should normalize women walking out on dates just because for danger or discomfort for sure, but also just I sat through a 90-minute lecture once on the finer points of drainage ditch engineering. I walked out of that date thinking, I will never do that again. Like, I need a new plan because that was not okay. Like, that was an exploitation of my time and energy and labor. The problem of men's holding court without showing any interest in women at all is pervasive in dating, both in messaging and in real life. And there's a growing awareness of and intolerance for that, which is a good thing. But I think what I'm doing is giving terminology to what women have been encountering for eons and that we know in our bones is wrong. Burned Haystack is giving women a common language with which to discuss it. And that's very affirming. And the community support is really
yes.
affirming.
And you
Yeah.
even call it a feminist
Oh,
manifesto, which
yeah.
I do believe it is.
Hmm.
You do a couple of interesting things in here. So what I like is you intersperse your humor throughout by putting sections called humor breaks, where sometimes you share writing that you've done or essays
Hmm.
you've written or other funny things, like every male profile written by a woman.
Yeah.
It starts, you're as comfortable in a tuxedo as you are in baggy cargo shorts on a
Yeah.
on a way too cold spring day. Like all
That
these
one was actually written by one of the group members. That
by
and it's fantastic. Yeah,
yeah.
everyone will resonate with that. Yeah.
And so you talk about in this humor break, when people ask me what Burn Haystack is all about, I say something like this: feminism, dating dynamics, applied rhetoric, and humor.
Hmm.
And the humor is because you're a humor writer and you believe it's a necessary component of surviving
Oh,
the
yeah.
dating apps. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
I mean, they're just so absurd. Like the experience of being a woman on a dating app is so bizarre and unpredictable and just truly insane that you have to have a sense of humor. For one thing, it would be weird to take it seriously, right? Like that would be unhealthy. It would be unhealthy to pretend that most of what you're encountering is in any way okay, because it's not. So the humor is necessary. And also, as someone who's studied satire a lot, the literary aspects of satire, I think it's really politically important to sort of recruit that lens to a lot of toxic male behavior, because I think we need to take it down a few notches to what it deserves to be, which is a punchline. And so
Yes.
I think taking a satirical approach is politically and socially powerful, and also goes back to a time when women couldn't say things in writing seriously because it wouldn't get published. So that's why a lot of early feminists and satirists were intentionally recruiting humor forms as political activism. And I want to continue that with Burned Haystack.
That's great. Actually, you have rhetorical pattern 20, the Greek tragedy of funny guys on the apps.
Yeah.
Guys who think they're funny and they are
Yeah.
so not funny. It is
Yeah.
such a subjective thing, but also
Right.
if somebody has to say, I'm really funny, they're
Right.
usually not, which you point out.
Right.
I'm just going to read a few more of the rhetorical patterns that you
Okay.
completely break down, and it is fascinating. Rhetorical pattern 21, pet namers. When somebody calls you sweetie or sunshine or
Mm.
silly, like the minute they meet you, this is a different rhetorical pattern, but somebody who wants someone to change their name. I always like the name Catherine. Can
Yeah.
I call you Catherine?
Right.
I mean, that's the controlling men. And even back
Hmm.
in the 90s, it'd be like, you should
Hmm.
dressing in a dress to go dancing as much as you like wearing blue jeans and look
Yeah.
good in them. You
Yeah.
should be fit. You should eat healthy. And it used
Yeah.
to annoy me, but I was like, well, okay, I guess that's, what they're looking for. But
Hmm.
you also break that down as the shoulds as a
Yeah.
rhetorical pattern. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I
Yeah. I
would
mean,
think this is so helpful.
yeah, and I saw that all the time too when I was on the apps. I mean, there's something fundamentally and deeply wrong with a man who's never even met you feeling comfortable directing anything to do with your body, even commenting on your appearance. That's a level of presumptuousness and objectification that if we think in terms of rhetorical information, because a lot of women will be like, it doesn't really bother me. I took it as a compliment. Okay, that's one thing. But if we're looking through a rhetorical lens, what I'm interested in is the rhetorical reveal. And the rhetorical reveal with men who conduct themselves that way is that they see women as objects or things to be won and obtained and controlled. And that is not going to be someone who's a good partner. So we're reading rhetorical cues, not emotional impact.
And that makes it better because a woman can say, okay, I'm just going to be very practical with this and break it down. And this is what it really means. And this is not a great How do I even know if this person's worth putting my
Right.
energy into? And then you also include success stories. And
Yeah.
I have to talk about the Haystack group, the
Yeah.
Facebook group, because
Yeah.
it is
It
huge.
is huge. Yes.
And
Yeah.
you created this. Can you
Yeah.
talk about a little how that came about?
Sure. Yeah. So I had zero social media following and didn't know anything about social media at all when I started Burned Haystack. And I had written an article for The Independent. And when it came out, I thought, oh, I should probably have a way for women to talk about this. And I was completely unprepared to do this, and had no help or anything. I don't have help now. I think people assume I have like people or something. I don't. Like it's still just me. I was in, do you remember the binders groups
Oh,
on Facebook?
yes.
Okay. So if you know, you know. Anyway, I was in a couple of those secret Facebook groups and I posted the first Burned Haystack article in one of those and just thought maybe a few women would want to join me here on Facebook and talk about it. And I mean, it's attached to my private Facebook account. It's not even a page, it's just a private group. And women did like a few came over initially and then just started sharing it, and then the next article that came out was in Huffington Post, and that was probably
Noah.
yeah, Noah. Yeah.
Love Noah.
No, who's yeah, I'm so excited. He's going to be at my launch event in New York City, and I can't wait to see him again. He's just I mean, he's such a delightful and generous human being, and also just a total pro as an editor, right? Like his
Yes.
editorial skills are so sharp and so insightful. And when I
Yeah.
pitched to him right away, he said, this is more than a method. This could be a movement. Now, I just had a handful of people in my group at that point, but after that article came out, it just kind of took off and never stopped. And I think now we're at 260,000 some.
That's so
Well, and
fantastic.
it speaks to how serious the problem is because I didn't do any kind of promotion or anything. I mean, one thing we can say about Burnt Haystack is it was 100% organic growth because there wasn't anyone behind it, who knew what she was doing. But the problems with online dating are so severe and so pervasive that I think once we started talking about it, women just started sharing it with their friends and their sisters and their mothers and their daughters, and then it just kind of took off. Yeah.
What do you think the number one thing that people get wrong about dating before reading your book?
That it's an emotional endeavor. And let me
Yeah.
qualify that because of course it is, right? You're looking for love, but if you're using a dating app, I mean, it's dangerous to enter it with that mindset. It's also totally ineffective. Olive Burned Haystack helps you get the intellectual grounding you need at the earliest stages so that if you do meet someone, you can successfully like flip over to heart mode and have a good experience. But you don't want to enter it that way. It's not going to work. And it's going to waste your time and energy and everything else.
And you
Yeah,
also teach a course on dating,
I
and
do.
you included your syllabus in the book.
Yeah, I actually that's not the course syllabus. The course I teach is for undergrads, so it's quite different.
Okay.
But I wanted to write that chapter as a syllabus because it is so academically grounded. It's still very, I hope, like I think it's still readable. We tried really hard, and the editorial team at HarperCollins was hugely helpful in helping me to like translate critical discourse analysis, which is like an obscure graduate level like offshoot of applied rhetoric, but that's what Burned Haystack is based upon. And I wanted to present that in a way that was academic, but still accessible to anyone. And so that's why
Yeah.
we chose the syllabus format
I
for.
think the academic background gives it its gravitas.
Oh
It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
like you even talk about what the dating coaches today are getting wrong, or how
yeah,
they're making women say, "Oh, give them a chance.
right,
Give they're just, men, or
right,
sometimes this and the other." And it's
yeah,
really like, no, no.
right,
The way they have forced
right,
incompetence to make women
yeah.
fill the gap.
Right. Yeah, it's truly a weaponized incompetence, even on the part of the dating coaches on behalf of men, which is kind of weird.
So women are making the mistake when they're being overly emotional. They're not being a little bit more dispassionate and breaking it down and analyzing and saying, okay, my emotion wants to make him Prince Charming, but
Hmm.
look at what he's saying. This is not
Right.
the way that a woman should be treated. And you don't like the words high value women, and you talk about that. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I don't like the words high value men either. I think at the point we start commodifying human beings like that, we've already kind of departed from the mission. And to go back to the emotion part for a second, I don't want to come across as though I think it's not an emotional endeavor. I fully understand that it is. What I'm saying is that should not be the lens through which you're making decisions. Not at the beginning. It'll work against you. It kind of calls on people to like, you can hold the emotions in one hand and make decisions on the other. And there's some complexity to that, but I know for women who are in the group on Facebook, they would say, "Yeah, it'll make sense. A chapter or two into the book, you'll get it."
So, for someone listening and watching who
Mhm.
feels stuck, aside from reading your book, what is the one thing that they can start doing immediately to start feeling better?
Join the Facebook group because that's where the community is, and the community is, in my opinion, bigger than the method. If you're feeling alone and demoralized and gaslit and insecure, go talk to 250,000 other women who have been through the exact same thing, and within 5 minutes you'll realize, oh, it actually I never was the problem here. And then we're talking about what the problem actually is, which is men, to be
And
clear.
the
Yeah.
and the group is actually really funny.
The
Um,
group is
yeah.
hilarious and super smart. It's got to be the smartest group on Facebook. Like I think it just has to be. It's a brilliant group of women.
I had my chance the other day because it's very hard to get a comment in there because
Yeah,
sometimes you shut the comments
I
down, which
do.
I
Yeah.
completely understand.
Hmm.
You have to teach, you have to do things, you don't want things to get out of hand. And I couldn't believe it. Somebody had posted about somebody and they said, "What do you think? That I dated him?" I was like, "Oh, I can write a comment." I wrote, I'm the prize vibes."
Yeah, yeah,
A couple of
yeah,
people liked it. I think it was more than that. There were
yeah.
other issues with what he was doing, but I felt so good that I was able to get my comment. And then other
Yeah.
people, it's funny, but it's also very, very serious.
Yeah.
And you're really helping women. The dating apps are really not underlyingly supportive of women. And you actually made a difference in Bumble. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that through your method and through the Facebook group and the community and the momentum you've created? Tell me what happened.
Yeah. So rule number 4 of burned haystack is block to burn, which refers to the fact that when you've decided you're not interested in someone, instead of just swiping left, you should actually block his profile because otherwise the app is going to recycle him again. And blocking is implemented on the apps for safety. So the idea is that that should protect you from ever seeing that guy again. If you block him, you've effectively said, I don't consent to interacting with this person. Well, Bumble was recycling even those. I mean, they were basically just steamrolling right over no means no and violating women's consent. And they admitted that in an email, which was shocking. From to one of the women in Burn Haystack who had questioned it, and she sent it to me and I put it on Instagram. We did verify and make sure that it had actually come from Bumble, and it did. And there ended up being a follow-up article in Rolling Stone about that, and they did a lot of their own verification too. And it did take, I don't know, just 2 or 3 days, I think, and then Bumble did come out publicly saying that they would correct that.
And wasn't the CEO of Bumble a woman?
Yeah, the founder. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I mean, Bumble is billed as the feminist dating app. So to have the feminist dating app seem to be completely unaware of no means no, which is sort of like a cultural concept everyone agreed to decades ago, at least ideologically, was, really offensive and concerning to
Yeah.
Bumble's female
So with the
users.
haystack philosophy, do
Hmm.
you think that before that, women, because of their hope, were in this maze of the dates and the men and not centering their lives around themselves? Do you think it kept women longer? And why do you think it kept women longer?
Yeah, I mean, women are socialized to center men. So, if you're on a dating app trying to meet men, you've got an unlimited number of men to center yourself upon or around. And the apps are gamified and commodified to keep everyone hooked in, everyone of all genders. But then additionally, women are socialized to center men in a way men aren't socialized to center women. So there's kind of like an exponential intensifying effect there. And it's just something that if you're raised in a patriarchy, like we all have been, it's, literally the water we swim in. And I think women, we've all kind of sensed that forever. But again, giving language to it, bringing a critical mass of women together to talk about it and to intentionally opt out of it, which is what we're doing with Burnt Haystack, has been really empowering.
And also in the Facebook group, there are times that I've seen where a woman will say, oh, let's give him, a chance. Maybe he's
Hmm.
autistic. Maybe he's this.
Yeah,
Maybe he's that. And people will say, no, don't,
right.
you don't.
Yeah, we don't
They
do that.
don't
Yeah.
get extra
No,
chances. They're new to you. They don't even know you. They haven't even met you. And
right.
so the women are correcting. And I've also seen women
Hmm.
saying, before I would have given him
Yeah,
extra chances,
right,
and now I don't. And
right.
back when I was dating, if he screwed up, I wouldn't give him another chance. If he
Hmm.
like blew off a date or didn't call or, without a legitimate reason, I would
Hmm.
just be next, next.
Yeah, yeah,
And so it was my own feeling of trying to preserve self-worth in some way.
yeah.
And it
Right.
is, it's an onslaught. My daughter's 16 now.
Okay.
She's stepping gingerly into the dating pool, but
Yeah.
I want her to have the tool set
Yeah.
that your book affords women. And so I'm absolutely going to have her read this, even if it's a little early for her. It's never too
Yeah.
early to feel valuable and feel that you're not trying to measure up to some man's goal
Hmm.
of who that final piece in the puzzle, which is another
Right.
rhetorical
Yeah.
pattern,
Right.
is going to be. Do you feel that anything is that could cut off a potential relationship because of these rhetorical patterns being identified?
I mean, so I get asked that a lot, the question usually sounds like, isn't there a risk that this method is so strict you would actually rule someone out who might have been a decent match? And, sure, I guess that's possible. The far greater risk is giving men too many chances and either ending up in a bad situation or just wasting days and months and years of your life with someone who's not a good partner. So, all of dating, all of life is a set of calculated risks, right? Like for myself, I'm going to err on the side of adhering to a very strict method because I don't want to risk wasting my time, ending up with an abuser, whatever it might be. Like if the big risk is that I end up single, like I was okay with that. I was perfectly happy when I was single. So I was not willing to make any compromises. And when I used the method myself, I used it to a T. I think people should use burned haystack in whatever way it works best for them. And people are experimenting with it a lot. We had a great post last week with a woman who was intentionally using it to find a polyamorous relationship, which is not how I conceived of it at all, but it worked for her. Like she ended up really, really happy. Now she had to make some tweaks, but we've had our first burned haystack couple was two women, even though like the whole thing was conceived of as a way to combat patriarchy. But that women can be patriarchal too, right? That's not necessarily about gender so much as it is a system of oppression. So do I think it's a risk? Probably. It's one I think most of us are willing to take.
A
Yeah.
calculated one,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my final question to you is, what do you see as winning at love? And feel free to use yourself as an example.
Yeah. First of all, I think winning at love should first be defined within the individual, right? Because, and I don't want to get all like woo woo, like you have to love yourself first. I actually don't believe that. But winning at burned haystack, I would say to me means finding the confidence and comfort in heeding your own intuition before even thinking about whether you're going to end up partnered. I want women to feel better about every aspect of their life because of burned haystack. If part of that ends up being that they find a partner, then I think that's icing on the cake. But men come and go, relationships end, life throws you curveballs and people get sick. I mean, we can't control for everything. What we
Right.
can control for is understanding interactions in a way that allows us to maintain dignity and self-worth and safety and personal comfort. So I would say
Yeah.
that's how I would define winning.
And I like that because it's not like, oh, love yourself. Oh,
Right. Yeah.
I'm enough. I'm good.
Right.
It's,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
valuing yourself
Right.
because
Hmm.
if you value yourself, it's automatically going to cut out some of the things that maybe would have been allowed. But this
Yeah.
also gives you the understanding why you
Yeah.
need to value yourself and why you need to break down the words, the
Hmm.
actions, all of that in such a tangible, helpful way that you're just helping so many people, Jenny, and
Oh,
will
thank you.
continue to. And bringing this book out into the world is just such a great way to do that.
Oh, well,
Burn the
thank you.
haystack.
I'm really excited. It's been a labor of love and intellect, and it's kind of what I have to give. So I do hope it's
Yeah, and
helpful.
it's and I know that your dean is really supportive of you also,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah,
is
my
great.
institution has been incredibly supportive in general, and I'm really grateful for that. I know it's not always the case for public
And
scholars. And
what do you want to happen out of Burn the Haystack now being out in the world, and of course the Facebook group? How do you want to see this go forward?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I think what we've learned is it obviously transcends dating. Burn Haystack methodology is being used quite a bit in domestic violence abuse and recovery, also with neurodivergent people in religious abuse recovery, which I didn't see any of this coming. I'm very interested in seeing like what concrete things can I do to help people implement it in some non-dating ways. It's being used a lot in the workplace and stuff like that too. So I'm already kind of teach a course called Rhetoric in Real Life, which takes Burnt Haystack methodology and applies it beyond dating. I think that's where it's going next.
Yeah, your brand is really rhetoric as
Yes,
applied to all
right.
these different facets of life.
Yeah.
This is wonderful. Again, thank you so much, Jennie.
Uh,
I love talking with you, and I love what you're talking about and what you're sharing with women to help them. It's
well,
so
thank you.
important. It's part of my
Thank you.
mission too.
I appreciate that, and I'm just happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Follow me at estelleserasmus.com on my website and on social media, which is Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Estelle S. Erasmus. And we're now on YouTube for Freelance Writing Direct. Follow along, and soon everyone will be reading what you're writing.